So too Atzilus, as a memutza, as a bridge, has two aspects to it, the higher chokhmah and the lower chokhmah. Today is Koach Tamuz, the 28th of Tamuz, and we are in Hemshech Samech Vov, page Kuf Lamed Ches, in the new edition, Kuf Gimel in the old edition, the Maimar Vayishlach Yaakov, and we are the bottom paragraph, וכשם שהקשר הוא בחינת ממוצע בין אור אינסוף המאציל אל הנאצלים. So we are discussing the sphera and even more broadly the principle of Keser, the memutza, that which is the intermediary between Or and Sof and worlds, or the intermediary between Or and Sof and souls and neshamas. We will learn today, Mirz Hashem, that there is a difference between them, between the memutza, the intermediary between Or and Sof and worlds, and the memutza, the intermediary between Or and Sof and souls. But this is not discussed yet. Until now, we are learning about the principle of Keser as an intermediary. And the last thing that we have discussed is that it is through Keser, through the sphere of crown, and the principle of Keser, through this intermediary, that the connection between Or and Sof and Jewish souls happens. And then the Rebbe went to discuss more at length the three possibilities of a relationship between the upper realm and the lower realm. And for that, we will review, Be'ez Hashem, with the wonderful questions that Fegi prepared. Number one, what is the connector between Or and Sof and Yisrael? So I think we already said it's Keser. What are the three ways that Keser can connect Or and Sof and worlds? Anyone wants to explain, Fegi or anyone else?
The Mata could rise to the Mala.
Right, so below could ascend to the above. That's one option.
The above can descend.
The above can descend all the way to the below. So the first option is the below can ascend all the way to the above. And the second option, the above can descend all the way to the below. I would start with this one. Okay, it doesn't matter. Yes. And the third?
The third option, that they could meet in the middle.
That can meet in the middle. That means that the below ascends as much as it can ascend, and the above descends to meet the below. Very good. Number three, how did it happen at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai? How will it happen in the future, in terms of the world, in terms of the Jewish community? How did it, can anyone else say what of the three was Har Sinai representing, the Maimad Har Sinai, the event of Mount Sinai? What out of the three does that represent in terms of God and the Jewish people? Can anyone say? You would unmute yourselves.
The above descended.
Very good. Below. The above, Hashem Yarad al Har Sinai, descended to the below. Very good. And how will it be in the future?
In the future, the below will ascend to the above.
Right. In the future, the below will be refined enough and purified enough that it can ascend and be included in the above, yes, all the way to the above. How was Moshe able to go up El Elokim?
He had refined himself so much that he didn't need any sustenance. He didn't need man, he didn't need food, he didn't need water. He had refined himself that spirituality was his sustenance.
Very good. So he represented the third option.
Right.
Of the Tachton going up, and he came up to not to Havaya but to Elokim. El Elokim, the way Hashem came down to be now relatable through Elokim, which we know that Elokim is the inyan of Malchus, of Atzilus. Tzimtzumim. Elokim, not Havaya. So Hashem also came down. That's the third option. The third option. Number 5, very good, Fegi. How can there be hamshachas ha'atzmius bepnimius?
Through Moshe and through Torah.
Very good. Through Moshe and through Torah. Through a Rebbe and through Torah. Because otherwise, there is always a compromise. If the hamshacha of atzmus, or if it's all atzmus, if they're authentically God, then we cannot perceive it. It will be superconscious. And if it's God revealed, it will be only ha'ara, as the Rebbe taught us. It will be only a radiance, only an expression from Elokus, but not God himself. But how is it possible that you get the whole God and internalize and contain it? That is possible, perfectly said, Fegi, through a Rebbe, through Moshe Rabbeinu, through Moses, and through Torah. They are the bridges that enable that. Okay, number 6. What is middle place between Jewish souls and Hashem? What is middle place between Jewish souls and Hashem?
Is that the Torah?
The Torah, but I'm looking here. Yes, that's true, but in the context of that discussion.
Yes. When Hashem lowers himself in Atik and we raise ourselves and refine ourselves.
Very good. So that's really through Shviras HaKeser. It's true, it's true what you said also. It's done through Torah as well. And the way Keser is, Torah is also Keser, is also a Memutza. So, but in terms of the Spheros, how Hashem lowered himself in a manner of Atik. Because the emanator is not Atik. The emanator is not Keser, is not crown. Or and Sof is higher than crown Atik. But Hashem lowered himself in the aspect of Atik, which is the crown, and there is the chibur, there is the connection between Atmos Or and Sof and the Neshamos Yisrael. Okay, we are ready to move on unless anyone has a comment or a question. וכשם שהכסר הוא בחינס ממוצע, and I just want to say that things will be familiar, hopefully, because of the long Marem footnote that we learned from the Frierdiker Rebbe. So things will hopefully sound familiar to you, to whatever extent. וכשם שהכסר הוא בחינס ממוצע בין אור אינסוף המאציל אל הנאצלים, and just as כסר is the bridge, the intermediary between Or and Sof, the infinite light, the emanator, and the emanations, כמו כן בחינס אצילוס בכלל, הרי זה ממוצע between Or and Sof המאציל אל הנבראים חולו כידוע. So just as Keser is an intermediary between Or and Sof and the emanated worlds, so too Atzilus, altogether, the world of Atzilus is a memutza, is also a bridge. It's also an intermediary between Or and Sof and the created worlds. ויש בזה גם כן בחינס ירידס העצמוס כביכול להיות בחינס ממוצע. And in these two, in Atzilus 2, there is a process of a yerida, of a descent of Atzmus, to become a memutza, to become an intermediary, of divinity to become, to present itself, to function as a memutza, as an intermediary between the infinite authentic expression of God, Or Ein Sof, and the created worlds that are their being, their existence is in the manner of a ego and a feeling of self that is separate from its source. So Atzilus is the bridge where Hashem came down to be a memutza. V'hainu, how is so? We learned it. Ma shepnimius Abba hu pnimius atik. Where does it happen? Where is it possible to happen? From the fact that Pnimius Abba, which means the inner dimension, the core of Chokhmah, of the sphere of Chokhmah, which is the first sphere of Atzilus, is Pnimius Atik, is the core of the sphere of the all-inclusive Memutza, which is Keser, Pnimius Atik. So Pnimius Atik is the inner aspect of Chokhmah, which the whole Atzilus, the whole world of Atzilus, is colored by Sphiras HaChokhmah. That's the home of Sphiras HaChokhmah. That's the Sphiras HaChokhmah is most manifesting in Atzilus, because just as Sphiras HaChokhmah is a power, but a power of what? A power of Bitul. So too the whole Atzilus is the 10 powers of God, but what are they in Atzilus? They are just battle to Or Ein Sof. They are one with Or Ein Sof. So Pnimius Abba is Pnimius Atik. The Bchinas Atik Atzmo. That means that Atik itself. What is Atik? Atik is the Pnimius HaKeser, right? Keser is made of Atik and Arich. Atik is Pnimius HaKeser, is inner aspect of Keser, and Arich is, or Arichanpin, is the Chitzonius aspect, the external aspect of the sphere of crown, of Keser. So Atik itself, עצמו, זהו מה שנעתק ונבדל לגמרי, חולו. What is Atik itself? Atik is that aspect of Keser, which means divinity, the way it is ne'etak, the way it detached and removed from worlds. אבל על ידי שנמשך בבחינס חוכמה. So Keser has two aspects. Atik, the way godliness is removed from worlds, and Arich, the way godliness becomes the beginning of worlds. So it has two aspects to it. The inner aspect is also the inner aspect of Chokhmah, which is the beginning of Atzilus and all worlds, the spheres of Atzilus, and further on, the created worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. So, Atik itself, as we learned already, is totally removed and above creation, above worlds. אבל על ידי שנמשך בבחינת חוכמה, but through Atik is now נמשך בבחינת חוכמה. Atik, when it is becoming Pnimius Atik, Pnimius Chokhmah, and when Atik is drawn into Chokhmah, now it's like a meturgeman. נעשה בבחינת ממוצע. Then it becomes an intermediary. וכידוע, the base בחינות שבממוצע דאצילוס הן base בחינות חוכמה עילה וחוכמה תתה. And is known that the two aspects of the ממוצע of Atzilus, the Atzilus as a bridge, Atzilus as a ממוצע, the two extreme aspects of this ממוצע, so to speak, the two far aspects of this ממוצע of Atzilus is the Chokhmah Ilah, the Chokhmah of Atzilus, and the Chokhmah Tata, which is Malchus of Atzilus, which is also called Chokhmat Tata. The Chokhmah is the way it is in Malchus of Atzilus, meaning the way Chokhmah is going to be in Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya eventually. The way Chokhmah will be in the created worlds. So, Atzilus too, just as Keser, being a Memutza, has two aspects to it, Atik and Arich, so too Atzilus, as a Memutza, as a bridge, has two aspects to it, the higher Chokhmah and the lower Chokhmah. The higher Chokhmah is that aspect of Atzilus that is divine, and the lower Chokhmah is that aspect of Atzilus which is the source of the consciousness of the Chokhmah, the wisdom and the consciousness of the created worlds. וכמו שכתוב בתור האור, דיבור המסחיל כי אברהם לא ידענו. Look it up, תורה אור, the Alter Rebbe. ועל ידי אצילוס יוכלו להתייחד בית ההפכים. But it is through Atzilus, because Atzilus functions as an intermediary. Why intermediary? Because on one hand, Atzilus is 10 spheros. 10 spheros is the DNA, what we are made of. We are made of 10 kochos. Everything that exists is made of 10 spheros. The mathematical system, everything is 10. We are made, that's the DNA of worlds. At the same time, Iyu v'chayo echad, Iyu v'garmo echad. The kelim of Atzilus are elokus, are divinity, are infinite, are formless. Ayin. But it is through Atzilus function as a keser, functioning as a memutza, as a bridge, that both can be unified. היינו המאציל העליון אין סוף ברוך הוא, עם הנבראים דביה. Meaning that when Atzilus, the world of Atzilus, functions as a bridge, then the supreme emanator, Or Ein Sof, the infinite light of God, can unite and unify with the Nivraim, with the created beings of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, the created worlds. ובמקום אחר מבואר, elsewhere it's explained, and he brings here Biur Azor of the Frierdiker Rebbe, of the Mittler Rebbe, and the Torah and so on, of the Samech Vov. The Achibur, they can look at few places where if you want to focus more, it's altogether Atzilus, but if you want to zoom in more, then the Chibur al Yedei Chub. He explains there that the Chibur actually between the emanator and the worlds is specifically in Atzilus is in Chokhmah and Bina. The transition is through Chokhmah and Bina. Why? Because the Bina nikres Shchinta Ilah. Bina is called the upper Shechina. It's called Matronita. I don't know, how do you say Matronita, Matronisa in English?
Matron.
Matron.
Yes.
So there's the supreme matron, the upper matron, which is Bina, and the lower Matronita Tata, which is Malchus. In any case, here it says Shchinta Ilah. Bina is called Shchinta Ilah. Why? The upper Shchinta. Shchina. Why? Al Shem Shemashkenes Chulu. Because the energy of Bina is to take that which is elusive and formless, an ayin of Chokhmah, and to package it and give it letters and words. To make it into a yesh, to take a ayin and package it into a yesh. That's the Shechina. To give kelim, oros bekelim. It's mashkenes. It takes the or and gives it kelim so the or can dwell in the kelim. That's also the function of Malchus. That Malchus enables the or of Atzilus to dwell in the kelim of Bia. הרי זה שייך אל התחתון. So Bina שייכת already, if you want to be specific where it all begins, the ability to take the infinite and to relate it to the finite, it begins in Bina. like in a person's consciousness. Before Bina, you don't have any way to grab your mind around any insight. But from Bina on, you can give the ideas that you have, the concepts that you have, you can give them boundaries, you can give them words, you can give them oisios, and you can wrap your mind around them. And then you internalize them and you integrate them, and they can affect who you are and what you do. It begins in Bina. Shchin Taila, V'chayadua, and is known, the Ikar B'chinas Memale Kol Almin Hu Mibchinas Bina. And is known that the main energy of Memale Kol Almin is coming from Bina. It really begins from Bina, because Chochma is still Sovev, is still Ein, is still a Ma. Bina is the beginning of the Yesh. ועל כן שם מקום החיבור עם האור אינסוף המאיר בחוכמה חולו. Therefore you can understand that it is in Bina that is the place of the connection between the infinite light and חוכמה. והיינו, בעולם האצילוס. אצילוסו זהו בחינס ממוצע. The world of Atzilus, its emanation, the emanation of Atzilus is the aspect of a memutza. Questions so far? The Rebbe is in the middle of explaining everything, so if you have questions that are important, now is the time. Otherwise, we will move on with the Rebbe's explanation.
Hannah,
Yes.
I'd like to understand Atik and Atzilus. Are they the same, and like what is exactly different?
That in Atik you cannot see the spheros. In Atzilus you can.
So Atik is above Atzilus, or right?
Sure.
Right before.
Atik is the crown of Atzilus.
Okay. So Keser is also above Atzilus.
Sure. If Atzilus is the head, the Keser is the crown on the head.
Isn't Atik is Keser, Arich are Keser.
Yes,
Atzilus is mostly Chochma.
yes. Atzilus is the home of the spheros. In Atzilus, all spheros are revealed. Above Atzilus means Keser, spheros are subsumed in Or and Sof still. They are there, but still part of Or and Sof. And in Atzilus, they are revealed. But which one is dominating? Yes, Chochma in Atzilus. Bina is dominating in Bria, and the Midos are dominating in Yetzira, and Malchus is dominating in Asiya.
Okay, so consciousness starts at Chochma.
Yes,
Yes, so there's Matronusa Ilah, Matronusa Tata. There's two Matronisas.
yes. Bina and Malchus, the two mothers, the Ima Ilah, Ima Tata, yes.
What exactly is their function?
You want now, actually, we should get into what is Bina and what is Malchus?
Oh, okay.
But both of them share a function which is mashkenes, which is called both of Shechina because they bring the Or into a Keli. They are involved in Tzumim. Both are on the left, both are have inyan of Gvuros in them. Bina is on the left, Malchus has also Gvuros. Lodia Gvurosecha, Kvor Adar Malchusecha. Malchus is Gvuros. Why? Memale Kol Almin. We need to tailor and to restrict the light for the Kelim, to bound the light. So it begins with Bina, because in Chochma there is no boundaries yet. It's all Ma. So it's between Chochma and Bina that Or and Sof is connecting with worlds. The beginning of connection. The actual connection happens in Malchus, and in the Malchus is also Memutza, as we learn. There is part of Malchus, Malchus Cha, which is part of Atzilus, and still with Or and Sof, and Malchus and then there's Kol Olamim, Malchus Kol Olamim, that Malchus the way it goes down to Bria.
So every time you have the idea of Malchus, you have the idea of Matronusa.
Yes.
All worlds?
Yes. והנה ידוע שהתורה היא גם כן בחינס ממוצע. And as Elkalea said correctly, I think it was Elkalea, Torah is also ממוצע. Torah is also an intermediary בין עצמוס אור אין סוף לנשמות ישראל. Interesting. When the Rebbe was talking about how Atzilus is an intermediary between Or and Sof and worlds, the created worlds, he called it Or and Sof. המאציל העליון אין סוף ברוך הוא, or Or and Sof. But now, when he is talking about, when the Rebbe is talking about Torah, which is an intermediary between Or and Sof and Neshamos Israel, Or and Sof and souls, it says Ben Atzmus Or and Sof, if you pay attention, between the essence of Or and Sof. It will be significant soon. וכמאמר תלס קשרים מתקשרים דו בדו. As Torah, as just as Keser is a memutza between Or and Sof and worlds, Atzilus is a memutza between Or and Sof and the created worlds. Keser is a memutza between Or and Sof and the emanated worlds. Atzilus is a memutza between Or and Sof and the created worlds. And if we are delving, we are deep studying, we are reflecting on the principle of memutza, and so too, Torah. Torah is also a memutza. Torah is also an intermediary between Atzmus Or and Sof, the essence of the infinite light, the essence of God's presence in the world, and Neshamos Israel. וכמאמר תלס קשרים מתקשרים דו בדו. The Zohar says that there are three bonds that are connected with each other. ישראל מתקשרים באורייסה, ואורייסה בקודשא בריך הוא וכולו. The Israel are bonded with the Torah, and Torah is bonded with קודשא בריך הוא, with God. שעל ידי התורה נעשה ייחוד וחיבור לנשמות ישראל באור אין סוף. That it is through the Torah that there is a unification and a connection done, attachment between the Jewish souls and through them all the souls of the world, and Or and Sof. כי בתורה יש בייס בחינות. So we see that every memutza has two aspects to it. Keser has Atik and Arich. Atzilus has Chochmat Ilah and Chochmat Atah. Or if you want to be more specific, Bina Ilah and Bina and Ima Ilah and Ima Tata, Shchinta Ilah, Shchinta Tata. Or Atzilus between Or and Sof and the created world. That's generally Atzilus. But each memutza we see has two aspects to it. And so too Torah. But Torah also has as a memutza, as an intermediary between Or and Sof and Jewish souls. It also has two aspects to it. וכמו שכתוב, as it says in Tehillim, chapter 104, Ote Or Kasalma, where he talks about Torah, so it says that God is garbing himself with light as a garment, as a robe, as a gown. So Ote Or Kasam wraps himself with light and a garment and a gown. So Torah is made out of light and a garment to it. B'chinas pnimius v'chitzonius. There is the light of Torah and there is Torah, the salma, the gown, the garment of Torah. The neshamas Yisrael olim ad b'chinas salma. The Rebbe will explain that the neshamas Yisrael can ascend all the way to the aspect of the salma of the Torah, the garment of the Torah. And we are beginning with the, the garment of chokhmah, of the aspect of intellect. But it goes even higher. ובחינת עצמוס אור אין סוף, and עצמוס אור אין סוף, ברוך הוא יורד ומשפיל בבחינת האור שבשלמה. So the essence of Or Ein Sof, of the infinite light, lowers itself and descends into the principle of the light, the aspect of the light in the gown, in the garment. So, regarding Torah as an intermediary, as a bridge, every bridge has two sides to it. One side is the way godliness lowers itself and becomes the light of the Torah, and the other side of it, how souls, how consciousness, how souls are invested in Torah and elevate themselves all the way to the aspect of the Salma in the Torah. It's interesting, I don't want to become my own artist here, to be my own creativity, even though the Rebbe likes it, but Dafka the Rebbe, the Pasuk, Dafka chose the word, not levush, salma. It's a female, it's a simla, it's a different order of words. Simla is a dress, it's more like a feminine kind of garment. It is also shlomo and also shalem, shelma, a lot of secrets in this word. But right now the Rebbe is not, he's giving us the overall picture. So in this bridge of Torah, God descends into the Or of Torah, and the Jewish soul ascends into the Salma of Torah. ועל ידי זה הוא הייחוד. And through this meeting in the Torah, there is a unification between the Jewish soul and divinity. דבחינס עצמוס אור אין סוף שורה ומסגלה בנשמות ישראל. ועל ידי זה הוא הייחוד. What is the ייחוד? What is the unification between Or Ein Sof and Neshamos Israel? Is that the Bchinas Atzmus Or Ein Sof, that's Or Ein Sof itself. And not only itself, not in relation, Or Ein Sof in relation to its source. The way it reflects its source. That's all what it is. Shoreh u'mizgaleh b'neshamos Israel. It dwells and revealed in the consciousness of the souls. V'chayadua, as Elkalea mentioned before, the HaTorah nikres bris. Torah is called bris, is also a bridge. It's a bris, it's a covenant, it's a bond, it's an eternal, absolute bond. כמו שכתוב, אלה דברי הבריס. These are the words of the covenant. פרשת סבו. ועל פי הדברים האלה קרס הוויה עמכם בריס. In Parshas Tisa, it says, according to these words, Hashem established an eternal bond with you. The inyan ha-krisus bris de Torahu. What does it mean, the krisus bris, this making this covenant, this eternal covenant of Torah? What is that? Hu she'ein davar ha-mafsik benehem. Now we need to understand. And here is a beautiful point that is very inspiring. So you know what the Rebbe is telling us? That even though Hashem is always offering a memutza, between everything and everything there is a memutza. There's always a memutza. There's always an intermediate, there's always a bridge. But there are different kinds of bridges. Some bridges create a complete merging between the two worlds that they connect. And some bridges create a passage through which some of the higher world can go to the lower world. But only some of it, and only that part that it's shaykh to go through the bridge and to be accepted by the lower. So when the Torah tells us that Hashem made a bris between Elokus and the divine and the souls and the Jewish souls, it means the inyan krisus bris, the Torah, through the Torah, through the Torah, this bridge, this eternal absolute covenant was made between Or Ein Sof and Jewish souls, הוא שאין דבר המפסיק ביניהם. It means that nothing is in between them anymore. Nothing separates, nothing is there in between them that separates them anymore. There is a complete merging. שמתחברים בבחינת העצמוס אור אין סוף שבתורה חולו. That means that the souls are mamash attached, become attached to the essence of Or Ein Sof in the Torah. And the attachment is complete. וכמו שכתוב במקום אחר, as it says elsewhere. כמו שנסבאר במקום אחר, as it is explained elsewhere. See at length, הערה 53, שער התשובה, the middle Rebbe, and also תקס"ג from the Alter Rebbe. וזהו ההפרש בין בחינת הממוצע השייך לעולמוס להממוצע דאור אין סוף ונשמות ישראל. And this is the difference you need to understand after we understand the inyan, the principle of memutza altogether. We also need to understand that there is a difference between the memutza that is shayach to worlds and the memutza between Or Ein Sof and Neshamos Israel. These are different kinds of memutza. The Ba'olamos, that regarding the bridge between Or Ein Sof and worlds, הממוצע מפסיק ביניהם. The intermediary really stops between them. It's not that it doesn't bridge it, it's not a complete interruption. There is a communication, but soon we'll see how the Rebbe defines it, and we heard it many times. And right now you see it. So what that means what? ומה שנמשך בעולם, what is drawn into the world as a result of this bridge, of this kind of a bridge, הוא בחינת הערה לבד. It's הערה only. Is only a radiance from Or Ein Sof that comes into the world through the normal bridges of the default of worlds, of סדר השתלשלוס. לא בחינת העצמוס, not the essence, not the לקוס itself. וכנ"ל בעניין הממוצע. As we learned about the ממוצע altogether, we learned about the מסורגמן, that the Mesurgaman is not, the translator, it doesn't have the same mind of the master. And when he gives over to the people, he gives over some of the Meturgaman that he senses in his brain, but he doesn't give the whole authentic mind of the master. Or when we were talking about the Memutza of the Elyon coming to the Tachton, then if the Elyon wants to give all of itself to the Tachton, that it's not possible, then the Tachton can't perceive it, cannot contain it. So only a Ara comes down. And this is the regular Memutzaim. The regular Memutza in Seder Ishtalshelus is a bridge, but only a Ara comes to the lower. Aval b'Torah, but in the Torah, which is a bridge between Or Ein Sof and Neshamos Yisrael, ein ha-memutza mafsik. Torah is not a memutza that interrupts, that divides or that creates a separation. ומתחברים נשמות ישראל בבחינת עצמוס אור אין סוף ברוך הוא כולו. And it is through the Torah that Neshamos Ein Sof can actually be attached and bonded with and connected to and with the essence of Or Ein Sof. Or Ein Sof itself. Not Ha'ara.
Shana, but don't forget that without the bridge of Atzilus and all the worlds, there would be no bridge to Torah. The Shamas Yisrael wouldn't be able to receive Torah. So,
right, because there wouldn't be a goof either.
There wouldn't be any Caleb, there wouldn't be any ICAs. And
yes.
It would just be.
Yes, so, we are not putting the bridge of the worlds between Or Ein Sof and the worlds down, God forbid. We are
need those.
part of that. We are part of creation. The Torah was given to Neshamas Beguf. We are the expression of Dvar Hashem, not only Alu B'machshava, the thought of God. We are souls in bodies in the physical world. You are correct. But it's still a different, there is a different bond. There is a different connection, a default connection between the higher and the lower in worlds, in Seder Ishtalshelus, and it's a very different from the connection that is created in the souls in Seder Ishtalshelus through the Torah with Or Ein Sof itself.
Through the Torah, we can connect to this higher to Kodesh Baruch Hu and to all the neshamas directly, but to Oilamos, it's in a different way. It's only through an ara.
Yes, unless there are Jewish souls, and now we need to say not only Jewish souls, but also non-Jews, who all of us following the Torah. And now, when a Yid learns Torah the way he's supposed to, he is now not only revealing Ha'ara from Or Ein Sof, which that's what is possible for the world without Torah, or before the avodah of souls, before the involvement of souls, of consciousness, of human beings working and investing their minds and hearts and behaviors into the truth that they discover and uncover. So beforehand it's Ha'ara, but through the Neshamas Yisrael learning Torah and all the world following Torah. The Goyim also have their 7 mitzvahs, Bnei Noach, and they have to learn Torah too. Then it's not just Ha'ara that can be revealed in the world, but now we are making it possible for the entire world to connect with Or Ein Sof itself. Not just a ray from Or Ein Sof.
Hannah, I'm just thinking about it in like a practical way. Like, I mean, we know that Atzilus Or Ein Sof is what enables Yesh Ma'ayin. And it feels like when a Yid is learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, and he kind of like he, I guess practically anything becomes possible. I think that's why I would say like anything, absolutely anything becomes possible. It's literally the Eibishter himself functioning in this world and creating things, making things happen, and anything can happen because there really is there's no rules over there. I mean, like, you know.
Yes, that's the Yichud Sober V'Memale. Yes. And we are going to the next paragraph. Now we're kind of beginning to tie everything together, but we'll see another dimension will come in. The dimension of tshuva. ועל פי זה יובן בייס המדרגות שבבחינס התיינוג. We're not going to get to the tshuva today, so don't worry, you don't have to do tshuva yet. ועל פי זה יובן הבייס מדרגות שבבחינס התיינוג העצמי הפשוט. Now, according to what the Rebbe explained so far, and we had the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe's son explaining to us also, we can. The Rebbe is kind. He says, will be understanding, or it can. I will say it's possible to understand something from this base hamadrego shebivchinas hatainug ha'atzmi hapashut. Regarding these two levels of this pure, divine, undefined, unlimited tainug, hamorgash va'abilti morgash, the sensed and the unsensed, of the pure essential divine tainug. The bchinas hatainug, which are the two stages of olam haba, of the world to come. The first stage we eat, the seuda of shor habar and the libyasan and yain meshumar, and the second stage, en bo achila, en bo shsia. No eating, no drinking. The bchinas hatainug haba b'murgash, the aspect of this essential divine delight that is coming in a sensed way. אם היות שזהו בחינת התיינוג העצמי ממש, שבבחינס האל ההלם העצמי דאין סוף, even though, don't forget, we are talking about Tainug Ha'atzmi. It's not Tainug Murkav. It's not grafted onto anything. It's Tainug Ha'atzmi itself. It's the pure thing of the divine Tainug, of the Helem Ha'atzmi of Ein Sof, the essential Helem, hiddenness of Ein Sof, which means Ein Sof not in relation to anything. So this is the absolute divine Tainug, both of them. אמנם, however, זהו כמו שהתענוג הנ"ל בא בבחינס הלם העצמי דחוכמה שבתורה שבעצמוס אין סוף כולו. However, the תענוג המורגש, the sensed aspect of this divine infinite delight, is the way this תענוג comes in the essential hiddenness of the Chokhmah of Torah, the way Torah is part of Atzmus and Sof, but the way Torah is part of God. So the Tainug HaMurgash, the sense Tainug, is the way the divine essential Tainug comes in the hiddenness of the Chokhmah of the divine Torah, of the Torah, the way it's part of the divine, the way it is in the Chokhmah HaTorah, the way Tainug, this Tainug is in the Chokhmah of Torah. But Helem Ha'atzmi of Chokhmah of Torah, not the intellect of Torah, the Helem Ha'atzmi of Torah, Pnimius Atik, Pnimius Abba. שזהו בחינת התענוג העצמי ממש. This is ממש the תענוג העצמי. אבל ליוסו בא בבחינת חוכמה, but since it comes in the principle of חוכמה, הרי הוא בא במורגש לנשמות ישראל. Therefore it comes in a sensed way, in a conscious way, because it's חוכמה. As CP asked before, Chokhmah is the beginning of consciousness? Yes, that's why you say it's Murgash. L'neshamos Yisrael, how b'vchinas ta'amei Torah v'ta'amei mitzvos. But again, don't get confused. It's not Murkav, it's not in the intellect of the Torah. It's still the ta'amei Torah and ta'amei mitzvos. The timing of Torah, the timing of mitzvos, the keser of Torah, the keser of mitzvos, the tam, the tainug. Hainu, and the Rebbe explains in the parentheses, b'chinas ha'oneg ha'ne'elam ha'atzmi shebamitzvos. When we learn in the beginning of Samech Vov about mitzvos, we learned about the oneg ha'ne'elam in mitzvos. They learn that the mitzvahs are the Ratzon of Hashem, but in this Ratzon is also Tainug HaNe'elam. Mitzvahs have this essential Tainug of the Shashuim Atzmi, the essential Tainug of God. And so too in the Torah. The Keshem de B'chinas Atik, Shehu B'chinas Ha'atakas HaMahus Mamash, Kivyachol. Umikol Makom, על ידי שבא להיות בחינס כסר ועתיק חולו. הרי נעשה בחינס ממוצע על כל פנים חולו. So now the Rebbe is comparing the Torah to Keser. And he says, there's just as the aspect of Atik. Atik, what does it mean? Atik, we learned that one of the reasons why Atik is called Atik is because it's the Matzil. It's the emanator, it's ne'etak, it's removed, it's above, it's separate and detached from worlds. The hatakas mahus mamash kivyachol means the mahus, godliness itself, is ne'etak, is detached from worlds, it's higher, above and removed. Nevertheless, when it's atik, when it's not Or Ein Sof, when Or Ein Sof shows as atik, ומכל מקום, even though it's נעתק, even though it's detached and removed, nevertheless, מכל מקום, על ידי שבא להיות בחינת כסר ועתיק חולו, through Or Ein Sof coming to be in a manner, in a principle of Keser, Memutza, and Atik, Chulu. הרי נעשה בחינת ממוצע על כל פנים חולו. Then now Or Ein Sof becomes an intermediary, a ממוצע, at least. ועל ידי זה נעשה איסחברוס. Through this attachment is created, שמאיר האור בנשמות ישראל חולו. That the light of Torah shines, which is Pnimius HaTorah. The Or, not the Salma. The Pnimius HaTorah, Or Ein Sof itself, is shining in the Neshamos Israel. וכמו כן בחינת פנימיוס עתיק. And so too פנימיוס עתיק, which is the emanator. כאשר בא בבחינת פנימיוס אבא, when it comes in a manner of פנימיוס אבא, הרי זה בחינת ממוצע. Then it becomes a ממוצע, ויכול להיות בזה האיסחברוס והתפיסה על ידי מצוות לא תעשה חולו. And then it can be when Pnimius Atik becomes Pnimius Abba, as we learn in the previous page, not in the previous case, in the 2 pages ago, Kuf Lamed Vav in the top paragraph, we learn that when Pnimius Atik comes in Pnimius Abba, Harei ze bchinas memutza, it becomes a memutza, and Yachol liyos bazeh. And in this, there cannot be a tfisa, because we say le tfisa bach klal, that usually there is no tfisa, there is no ability to grasp Or Ein Sof at all, but through Or Ein Sof becoming Atik, and then Atik becoming Pnimius Abba, then there could be his chabros, there could be a connection, and tfisa, and there could be a tfisa, a reach, a grasp, a some kind of a grasp, and reaching it. Litpos means to reach, means to grasp, and means also to internalize eventually. How? Al yedei mitzvahs lo taseh, as we learned 2 pages ago. Through the mitzvahs lo taseh, or in terms of Torah, yedias hashlila. Knowing the way something is not. שזה עניין, the עניין מצוות לא תעשה, זה שמי עם יודקי שסה. שמי with יודקי is 365, as we learned there, which is the עניין of מצוות לא תעשה. וכן הוא בממוצע דתורה. And so too in the intermediary of Torah, שעל ידי זה מתקשרים נשמות ישראל בבחינת עצמוס אור אין סוף שבתורה חולו. That it is through the ממוצע of Torah that the Jewish souls are connected and connecting with Or Ein Sof itself in the Torah. What it says in this paragraph, it talks about Tainug HaMurgash. And Tainug HaMurgash, this is the Tainug that comes. How is Tainug HaMurgash means that the undefined, unlimited, formless, infinite, undescribed, divine essential delight is sensed. Right? That's the first stage of the Olam Haba, the world to come. That's what the souls in bodies will experience, the first period of the world to come. And that Tainug, infinite Tainug, will be sensed. How is it possible? Because the Rebbe says this Tainug, which is undefinable and uncontainable and undescribable and so on and so forth, is coming in the Helem Ha'atzmi of the Torah, of the Chochmah of the Torah. It comes in the Helem Ha'atzmi. We learned that in Torah and mitzvahs there are 2 inyanim. There is the Torah, the Torah is the Chochmah of Hashem, the wisdom of God, and mitzvahs are the Ratzon of Hashem. the will of God. So when we learn Torah, we connect with the wisdom of God, and we involve our wisdom and so on. When we do the mitzvahs, we connect with the will of Hashem. But what is the primus of the Torah? What is the primus of the mitzvahs? It's not the wisdom of the Torah. It's not the Ma'aseh mitzvahs. It's the Tainug. The primus of Torah and the primus of mitzvahs are the divine infinite Tainug. We don't access it now. In Galus, we only access the intellect of the Torah, the wisdom of the Torah, and we only access the Kabbalah's all of doing the mitzvahs. But we don't access, so we are aligned with the will of God, but we don't access this infinite Tainug. That is which will be revealed in the future in the Geula, the future to come. How is it possible? So the Rebbe is explaining, the Rebbe Shab, that this infinite Tainug, the Tainug Atzmi, uncompromised Tainug, is coming in the Helem Atzmi, which now we cannot access and experience yet because we are in Galus. In the Helem Atzmi of the Chochmah. It's not about intellect, it's the Helem Atzmi of Chochmah, of the Torah. And not the way Torah here, the way Torah is in Atzmus and Sof. So it is through the Helem Atzmi of Chochmah Torah that when we go up to the Salma, that we can access, that we can connect with this infinite delight and sense it. What we will sense. That's how we will sense it in the first period of the future to come. Why? Because we will sense the way the Tainug Eloki Pashut is invested in the hiddenness of the wisdom of the Torah, the divine Torah. So we will access that aspect of it, the aspect that is Murgash, that aspect of the divine absolute Tainug that is coming through the wisdom of the divine Torah. And then there will be a second period of the world to come that we will talk about next time, Habilti Murgash. In the first stage there will be still aliyos, there will be still ascending of the neshamos, higher and higher and higher and higher. Big swim and leaps in the Mayim of Torah. But in the second period, we ascend the Mayim altogether, and we will get wings, the wings of an eagle. We will float above the waters of Torah. And that's the Tainug Ha'atzmi Abilti Murgash that we will, with God's help, talk about next time.
Hannah, are you describing like an aha moment when all of a sudden you realize something, when a bunch of ideas kind of come together and you realize like, oh my God, this is amazing. Is that kind of Tainug you're talking about?
I am not sure what your aha moment is. It's very hard for me to say if it is or not. I don't know. I don't know.
You know when like,
I think we're experiencing a lot of those aha moments already. Like sometimes like we see it so much like in the wisdom of technology,
it
right?
says that Mashiach already matzitz mi ben harakim. He is already peeking from the cracks of Galus, of the walls of Galus. Yes, you already begin to sense the little, yes.
I think just living with the Rabbeim is living with Geula, really.
Yes.
It's just
Yes.
The way that the Rabbeim taught us Torah.
Yes.
And the way we live with it.
Yes.
And that amazingness, you don't know what to call it.
The Amoisha Nefesh for us to get that Tainug Ha'atzmi in the Torah, to Torah Hasidus, and even more than that, as we learn next time. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable.
Hannah, Murgash, but unfortunately for a lot of people, for us sitting here and learning a mimer, it's Tainug Murgash. But for my people, it's not.
Also, Reach Nichoach LaHashem. That was when you first were talking about it. That's what popped in my mind. Is that also like is that also what it's talking about?
Yes.
So when we make a meal and it smells delicious and we're alevai, we would mekaven, so everybody has his kashrus and alle gute Sachen, that's really this tainuk that you're talking about?
It could be.
I would say it has to be. You said that there's two stages in Geula, right? There's one, you said we eat and drink. That's the marker of the first stage.
Yeah.
So it's clearly synonymous with this Tainuk Murgash. Like we clearly feel it when we eat. Do we know what we're feeling is a different question, but we clearly feel it. So it's question mark what we're feeling, but I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I
said
think
possible. I said it could be. It can be. Yeah, it can be. I mean, obviously we have to differentiate with that and the physical tainug of the time of a machal. Okay, ladies, let's hear good news and see wonderful sights. And
you reminded me. Can we all say amen? My niece, she has to have another surgery today, unfortunately. Tzivia Bas Chava Mishka.
Tzivia Bas Chava Mushka should have a complete recovery that is not only restore what could have been until now, but also open something completely new, and the rest of the growth should be smooth and wonderful. Bezrat Hashem, and with refuah shleima.